Erica, my new girlfriend, and I met a few months ago. We were introduced by mutual friends. I recall that moment as if it were yesterday. When I caught a sight of her from across the room, time seemed to stop. I had an instant connection with her and knew I had to get to know her more. Erica had only recently relocated to town, yet she exuded energy and adventure. Her smile was contagious, and her eyes gleamed with wonder. We began conversing, and it was as if we had known each other for years. We instantly bonded, finishing one another's sentences and laughing at the same jokes. It was love at first sight. We were inseparable from then on. Except we didn't live together. We both signed leases for separate residences and were unable to move in together. We did, however, frequently stay at one another's apartments. I soon observed Erica was preoccupied. When I asked what was up, she said,
"Dude, let me tell you about this strange neighbor situation I've got going on. This next door neighbor looks like something out of a horror film. I get the creeps simply thinking about him. This guy never seems to move from his spot by the window. It's as though he has a permanent, fixed gaze fixated on my house. Josh, it's freaking me out. Every time I walk into my kitchen, I see him staring at me with this strange expression on his face. I mean, it's truly terrifying."
I asked whether she wanted me to spend a few nights with her or if she wanted to stay at my apartment. I agreed to stay at her place per her request. And sure enough, there he was. Spooky as heck. He just stands there staring, not moving. I even called the cops, who told us there was nothing they could do because he was not breaking any laws. We initially tried to ignore the creepy neighbor, figuring it was just a coincidence or that he was just unusual, possibly mentally ill or something. We've tried to devise a strategy in case he does something strange. It was undoubtedly a difficult situation. Nobody should have to live in such fear. However, there was little we could do at the time. I spent a couple nights with Erica. Nothing major occurred. So, reluctantly, I returned to my apartment. I offered Erica to stay with me, but she declined, saying that her mother would be visiting her in a few days and that she needed to prepare for the visit. Everything appeared to be fine for almost a week. Life had returned to normal, and the neighbor had faded into obscurity. Or it seemed so. I had my own schedule going on, working, going to the gym, watching Netflix, you know, the typical stuff. Erica's mother came to visit, and Erica was overjoyed to see her. Who, after all, wouldn't be? Family time is always memorable. So I decided to go out to lunch with my girlfriend and her mother a couple times. Erica's mother turned out to be quite cool, down to earth, and hilarious. It was great fun hanging out with them, and it felt like we instantly connected. You'd think that having Erica's mother there would somehow frighten the creepy neighbor away. Nope. No, not this guy. He continued to stare out the window every day as if it were his full-time work. He seems to be obsessed with Erica in some way. Anyhow, during the mother visit, Erica and I made a point of entertaining her and making her feel at home. Together, we went on a tour of the town, visited several nearby landmarks, and even cooked up a storm in the kitchen for her. It was a fun time despite the disturbing presence next door. But this fun was short-lived. I received this frantic call from Erica just few days after her mother left. Erica was practically hyperventilating, informing me that the scary neighbor has upped his sinister game. This man was now coming to Erica's front door several times a day, standing and staring at the door for an absurdly lengthy amount of time. Even though I'm not particularly skilled at dealing with spooky neighbors, I was trying to make an effort to remain calm. So I advise Erica to take a big breath and ask the man what he needs. So I'm on the phone with Erica, guiding her through this nerve-wracking situation. She's apprehensive, which is understandable, but she's also tired of feeling like a prisoner in her own home. I tell her she has what it takes to be powerful and forceful. And guess what? She works up the nerve to do it. She slams the door open and faces the creeper face to face. I'm waiting on the line, hoping for the best. Then I hear her voice, scared but determined, asking the guy what he wants. There is a little pause before the creep speaks. He starts mumbling something about wanting to borrow a cup of sugar or some nonsense. Erica, being the badass that she is, instantly shuts him down. She tells him she doesn't believe his bizarre request and insists that he leave her alone. I'm silently rooting for her, filled with relief and pride. My girl is not to be messed with. Let me tell you, things moved from zero to chaos in an instant. Everything went downhill after Erica locked the door on the weird neighbor. This guy must have lost his last marble because he began hammering on Erica's door like a man possessed, hurling obscenities. It was a complete nightmare. Erica was frightened, and I could hear it in her voice as she told me about the situation over the phone. I advised her to hang up the phone and call the cops right away. We weren't playing around any longer. Meanwhile, I rushed to my car and drove as fast as I could to Erica's house. When I arrived, the area was already filled with flashing lights and sirens. Thankfully, the cops had come. They rapidly seized control of the situation and apprehended the psychotic neighbor. The man had a history of unpredictable behavior, as it turned out. Seeing Erica, visibly shaken but safe, was such a relief. We embraced tightly, grateful that this nightmare was finally over, at least for now. We made the decision that she would stay with me for the time being. We packed up some essentials, locked up her place, and headed back to my humble abode. It was a strange mix of emotions: relief, anger, and exhaustion. We spent the rest of the evening holding each other close and reflecting on the whirlwind of events we had just experienced. Let me tell you, it was one hell of an ordeal. Nobody should have to go through something like that. But through it all, we found solace in each other's arms. The coming days will bring their own set of challenges as we deal with the aftermath of this whole situation. But I know we can handle it. We've got each other, a support system that can weather any storm. It was late August when I moved into my new home. I was excited to start a fresh chapter in my life. The cozy suburban neighborhood felt welcoming, and I couldn't help but notice how friendly the neighbors were. One of them, Mr. Kalinowski, lived right next door. He seemed like a kind, elderly man, always offering a warm smile and a helping hand. Being a nurse, I thought I could offer some assistance to him. So, as weeks went by, I got to know Mr. Kalinowski better. We exchanged pleasantries during casual encounters and even had a few delightful chats over a cup of tea. He was diabetic and struggled with managing his diabetes. So, I tried educating him about the disease and offered my professional knowledge on how to improve his hemoglobin A1C levels. But then, one afternoon, everything changed. During a friendly visit to his house, I excused myself to use the bathroom. As I walked through the hallway, I noticed a peculiar sight. A small, inconspicuous door, hidden behind a bookshelf. My curiosity got the better of me, and without thinking, I decided to explore what lay beyond. With trembling hands, I turned the doorknob and descended into darkness. The basement smelled musty and damp, the air heavy with anticipation. The dim light from my phone barely illuminated the eerie space. As I ventured deeper, the flickering shadows played tricks on my mind. That's when I stumbled upon it. A secret room concealed behind a heavy curtain. My heart pounded in my chest as I pulled the curtain aside. What I saw in that twisted chamber sent shivers down my spine. Photographs covered the walls, a haunting gallery of unsuspecting victims caught in the clutches of fear. Some pictures were distorted and blurred, as if capturing the very essence of terror. Personal belongings adorned the room, trophies of a disturbed mind. The air grew colder, and a sense of dread washed over me. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed above me. Panic surged through my veins as I realized that Mr. Kalinowski is looking for me. I must have taken too long. Trembling, I hurriedly closed the curtain, hoping to conceal the horrors I had just witnessed. Realizing that I needed concrete evidence to prove Mr. Kalinowski's guilt, I made a split-second decision. With my heart still pounding and my mind racing with the urgency of my mission, I decided to grab some of the photographs I saw. The chilling photographs that lined the walls of his twisted room were crucial pieces of evidence, but I knew I couldn't take them all. I grabbed a handful of them, careful not to disturb the scene any further. As I ascended the basement stairs, each step felt heavier, as if the weight of the truth bore down on me. When I reached the top, I found Mr. Kalinowski waiting in the hallway, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling intensity.
Amanda, you've discovered my little secret, haven't you?
I tried to steady my voice as I confronted him.
What? What is all this? What have you been doing?
Mr. Kalinowski's face contorted with a twisted satisfaction.
Oh, my dear, it's my hobby. I capture moments of pure terror, freezing them forever in my photographs. It brings me immense pleasure.
My heart raced as the reality of the situation sank in. I had been living next to a monster, a predator who reveled in the suffering of others. Fear gripped me, but I knew I couldn't let him win. Summoning every ounce of courage, I met his gaze and said,
"I won't let you get away with this."
His smile widened, revealing a macabre delight.
My dear Amanda, they won't believe you. No one will. They'll see a harmless old man, not the true monster that lies within.
He started approaching me. I stumbled backward. The air felt heavy with a mixture of fear and determination. I knew I had to escape to bring his dark secret to light. With a surge of adrenaline, I turned on my heels and sprinted towards the front door. The sound of Mr. Kalinowski's voice echoed behind me, a haunting reminder of the danger I had narrowly escaped. Every step reverberated through the house as I raced towards the front door, desperate for freedom. As I reached the door, clutching the photographs tightly, my trembling hand fumbled with the lock. Panic threatened to consume me, but I forced myself to stay focused. With a final twist, the door swung open, revealing a ray of sunlight that spilled into the dimly lit hallway. I burst out into the fresh air, gasping for breath, feeling the weight of the basement's horrors lift from my shoulders. Then, I ran as fast as I could to my house. Finally, when I felt that I was safe in the confines of my home and behind the locked doors, I reached for my phone and dialed the emergency number, my voice filled with urgency and dread as I relayed the situation to the operator. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air as police cars descended upon the neighborhood. I guided them to Mr. Kalinowski's house, providing them with every detail I could recall. The authorities arrived swiftly, their expressions a mix of concern and determination. As they entered Mr. Kalinowski's house, I went out handed over the photographs, my hands shaking with a mixture of relief and dread. The officers examined the evidence, their expressions shifting from skepticism to horror. The magnitude of Mr. Kalinowski's sinister hobby was finally laid bare for all to see. Through my shaking voice, I directed the officers to the hidden room in the basement, guiding them through the chilling collection of personal belongings that adorned its walls. The weight of what I had witnessed settled upon me once again, but I knew that justice was finally within reach. The police secured the evidence and apprehended Mr. Kalinowski. As I watched the officers take Mr. Kalinowski into custody, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Relief washed over me, knowing that his dark secrets had been exposed. But the horror of the ordeal would forever haunt my memory, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind a friendly smile. With a deep breath, I stepped away from the scene, thankful that I had played a pivotal role in bringing the truth to light. The road ahead would be difficult, and the scars of that experience would never fully fade. I later learned that my neighbor's name was not really Mr. Kalinowski. Apparently, he was a serial killer who killed numerous women across several states in the late 1980s. As my neighborhood slowly began to heal, I vowed to remain vigilant, to keep a watchful eye on the seemingly ordinary lives that surrounded me. After rather difficult divorce, I decided I needed to start afresh. I moved across the country and settled in a small suburb of Los Angeles. My new home was small but perfect for a single divorcee like me. I was looking forward to my new life. The neighbors seemed pleasant enough, exchanging friendly waves and cordial greetings. One of the neighbors, Mrs. Roberts, was especially friendly. She was an elderly woman living next door. She appeared to be a frail figure with a gentle smile. But little did I know that behind her welcoming facade lay a peculiar obsession that would soon unravel my sanity. It all began innocently enough. A passing curiosity, really. After numerous invitations to have coffee with her, I finally caved in and went to visit Mrs. Roberts. Her house was beautiful, but had an appearance as if stuck in time. Everything was neat and clean. Then, I noticed something interesting. Mrs. Roberts had an extensive collection of antique dolls. Porcelain faces stared out from glass cabinets, their eyes seemingly following my every move. I couldn't help but be drawn to them. Their lifelike features looked frozen in time. Yet, there was something disquieting about their presence. Mrs. Roberts noticed that I was looking at the dolls, and she explained that she has a very large collection.
Each one of them is very dear to me. They are all special. They hold the essence of those I've lost. Each one is like a vessel of memories.
Then, she switched the subject. But what she said sounded strange to me and piqued my interest. As the days turned into weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about Mrs. Roberts' collection. The dolls invaded my dreams, their porcelain faces haunting my sleep. I became consumed with unraveling the mystery of the dolls. My initial inquiries yielded little information. Mrs. Roberts did not reveal much about how she acquired her dolls. But I refused to be deterred. There just had to be something to be revealed, a truth that begged to be unearthed. I went to the library and read every old newspaper I could find. My research led me down a twisted path of tragedy and loss, revealing mysterious deaths throughout the years, all seemingly connected to Mrs. Roberts. Each newspaper clipping I found painted a chilling picture of a woman consumed by grief, her desperation driving her to capture something of her lost loved ones. I found some photographs and I was horrified to see how they resembled the dolls I had seen. The truth was too grim to comprehend a macabre ritual that defied all reason and sanity. See, according to newspaper articles I read, Mrs. Roberts collected locks of hair, nail clippings, eyelashes and similar from people who died and whom she grieved. Then, she paid a local artist to create the dolls for her, using the macabre items she collected from each person. Dread washed over me as I realized the horrifying truth. Mrs. Roberts had, in her own twisted way, preserved the memories of her loved ones within these lifelike figures. The dolls were not mere hobby objects. At some point the police investigated Mrs. Roberts, but couldn't find any evidence that she murdered anyone. Yet, her bizarre way of commemorating the deceased people remained suspicious. And certainly it creeps me out to this day. The soft glow of the setting sun cast a warm golden hue over our new neighborhood as we unloaded the last box from our moving truck. The houses on the street appeared inviting, their pristine gardens and well-maintained facades exuding a sense of tranquility. It seemed like the perfect place for a fresh start, a peaceful haven to raise our young daughter, Lily. As the days passed, we settled into a rhythm, unpacking boxes and getting acquainted with our new surroundings. The neighbors were friendly, exchanging polite greetings and warm smiles. However, there was one neighbor who seemed to stand out, and not in a pleasant way. His name was Mr. Jameson, a tall, lanky man with unkempt hair and an unnerving gaze. He lived across the street, and it didn't take long for us to notice his peculiar habit. Each morning, as I sipped my coffee by the window, I would catch a glimpse of him standing outside his house, staring intently at ours. It sent a chill down my spine, his unwavering gaze making me question his intentions. "Hey, Sarah," I whispered one evening as we watched Mr. Jameson from our living room window. "Have you noticed that neighbor? He's always standing across the street, staring at our house." Sarah glanced up, her brow furrowing with concern.
Yes, it's quite unsettling. I wonder what his deal is.
We tried to dismiss our unease, attributing it to an overactive imagination or perhaps a misunderstanding. Yet, the feeling of being watched lingered, like an invisible presence haunting our every move. One night, as we gathered around the dinner table, the atmosphere suddenly shifted. Lily was happily recounting her day at school when a series of loud thumps resonated through the house. Startled, she jumped in her seat, her eyes wide with fear.
"Daddy, what was that?"
I exchanged a worried glance with Sarah as I rose from the table, my heart pounding with apprehension. I peered through the window, and there, on the other side of the glass, stood Mr. Jameson, his eyes wild and his fists pounding against the windows, demanding entry. Fear clenched my chest as I threw open the front door, confronting the frenzied neighbor. "What do you want?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. Mr. Jameson's face contorted into a twisted grin, his eyes filled with a manic intensity.
"I need to come in."
I instinctively blocked his path, my adrenaline surging. "No, you can't come in. Leave us alone." His eyes darted around, searching for a way to bypass me. The situation had escalated beyond the realm of simple eccentricity. With a burst of strength, I managed to push him back, slamming the door shut. Sarah quickly dialed the emergency services, her voice shaking as she explained the situation. Minutes later, the sound of sirens filled the air, but by the time the police arrived, Mr. Jameson had vanished into the night. They took our statement and assured us that they would patrol the area more frequently. However, our relief was short-lived. We couldn't shake the feeling that Mr. Jameson would return, his erratic behavior fueled by an unknown obsession. The sense of safety within our home was shattered, replaced by a constant vigilance that ate away at our peace of mind. Days turned into weeks, and the tension in the neighborhood seemed to escalate. Whispers traveled from neighbor to neighbor, sharing tales of Mr. Jameson's strange behavior. Some claimed he had a troubled past. While rumors swirled around the neighborhood, Sarah and I found ourselves locked in a state of paranoia. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind rattling the windows, made our hearts skip a beat. We installed security cameras, strengthened the locks, and kept the phone nearby at all times. But despite our efforts, the unsettling presence of Mr. Jameson continued to linger. One afternoon, as I worked in my home office, a knock echoed through the house. My heart raced, and I cautiously made my way to the front door. Through the peephole, I glimpsed the familiar silhouette of Mr. Jameson standing on our porch, a twisted smile playing on his lips. "What do you want?" I asked angrily as I made the mistake of opening the door. He leaned closer, his voice a chilling whisper.
"You think you can hide from me? From what I know?"
Confusion washed over me. "What are you talking about?" I stammered. Mr. Jameson's eyes gleamed with a sinister glint.
"Your daughter, Lily, she's not who you think she is."
Dread gripped my heart, and I felt a surge of protectiveness for my daughter. "Get away from my family," I shouted, my voice laced with desperation. In that moment, Sarah joined me at the door, her eyes wide with fear. Mr. Jameson's expression twisted into a grotesque grin, and he took a step closer. The instinct to shield my family surged within me, and I pushed him back with all my strength. Sarah screamed, her voice a mix of terror and defiance. Mr. Jameson stumbled backward, his gaze filled with a mixture of anger and confusion. With one last lingering stare, he turned and disappeared into the shadows. We called the police once again, sharing the twisted encounter with them. They assured us that they would increase their efforts to find Mr. Jameson and put an end to his menacing behavior. But as the days stretched into an anxious haze, we grew restless, fearing that the nightmare would repeat itself. Determined to protect our family, we delved into our own investigation, seeking answers to the twisted truth lurking behind Mr. Jameson's obsession. Late nights were spent sifting through public records, searching for any clue that would shed light on his cryptic words. Finally, we stumbled upon a shocking revelation, a newspaper article from several years ago. It detailed the arrest of a man who, based on the published headshot, looked a lot like Mr. Jameson. Minus the beard and gray hair, that is. But the guy's name was Jonathan Jackson. He had been convicted of a series of kidnappings. The victims? Young girls with striking resemblances to Lily. We realized that our scary neighbor was the convicted criminal. He must have escaped justice. As the horrifying truth unraveled, our heart sank. Armed with this newfound knowledge, we provided the evidence to the police, who intensified their search. Weeks passed, and finally, they managed to apprehend Mr. Jameson, aka Jonathan Jackson, bringing an end to his reign of terror. After thorough interrogation, the police informed us that Mr. Jameson had mistaken Lily for one of his victims, believing she was the same girl he had once taken from this very neighborhood. His deranged mind had fixated on our family, convinced that he had found the one who got away. Life slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. Our neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief, the shadow of fear lifting from our midst. Yet, the scars of the experience remained, a constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath even the most idyllic facade. We took solace in knowing that Lily was safe, that our vigilance had protected her from the clutches of a disturbed individual. But we also knew that the wounds inflicted upon our family would take time to heal, that the memories of those haunting days would forever shape our lives.